Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode. This is Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Thank you to those who are tuned in and those who've been tuned in the past, and thank you to those who are now subscribed. This is, after all, a first step to building a loyal base of followers. And when you subscribe, you're assured that you get every episode as they're released. And thanks to those who have referred others to the podcast. I really appreciate that. And then certainly thanks to those who've reached out with questions and comments. Recently, I stumbled upon a law, not a typical law like a tax law or jaywalking or anything like that. It's called Kanter's Law, and it's this simple. Everything looks like a failure in the middle is the law. To repeat, everything looks like a failure in the middle. Let me explain. Think about it. Whenever you're learning something new, like a language, or developing a new habit, like getting in shape or eating healthier, or embarking on a new initiative, like trying to create a new sales program or writing a book, whatever it is, there's typically a pattern to things. You're excited at the beginning as you embark upon whatever, the new language, the workout, the diet, the sales process. You're excited, you feel strong. The initial foray into whatever moves smoothly. You make great progress. Whatever you do feels like you can't miss. It won't fail. Your hopes and your dreams are simply going to fall into place. Then at some point, things tend to get bogged down. The first concepts of the new language are easy, but as you advance, they get a little more complicated. The workout or diet, it shows real promise in the beginning, but soon the gains don't feel as if they come as easy, if they come at all. The new sales program started strong, but then you realize that you've closed on the low-hanging fruit and the additional deals are not going to be quite as easy. This part is tough, often really tough, but if you stick to it, double down your efforts, become diligent, almost religious with respect to your efforts on whatever you're trying to do, things start to get easier. As they do, you gain a feeling again of being strong and excitement starts to rebuild. You regain momentum as you move towards the ultimate goal. Then finally, you realize your hopes and your dreams. You're fluent in the new language. The workouts and diets have gotten you where you want to be, or the sales program has both traction and the prospects of long-term productivity. Now, if you could graph your emotions, what your emotion looked like through that process, they would look like the letter U or a smile. At the beginning and at the end, your emotions tend to be very positive. At the beginning, you're optimistic and energetic. You've decided to start something new that you believe will be very interesting. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have embarked on it anyways, right? And then as you approach the end, you're full of confidence since the goal is in sight. It's very close. In the middle, however, you have doubts. The change, the improvements are no longer exponential or even linear or smooth. The changes involve 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or sometimes 1 step forward and 2 steps back. It feels like you're failing. This is Kanter's Law. Everything looks like a failure in the middle. Now, Kanter's Law is not merely idle speculation or conjecture. Kanter's Law is the work product of Rosabeth Moss Kanter, a professor at Harvard School of Business, or I should say the Harvard Business School, and chair and director of Harvard's Advanced Leadership Initiative. She's also the author of a book called Move, Putting America's Infrastructure Back in the Lead, as well as the author of a August 2009 Harvard Business Review article, Change is Hardest in the Middle. In her work, Kanter documented through her research that we're motivated in the beginning and we love the prospects of positive endings, happy endings, but it's the middle, the often very painful middle, where the hard work begins. And this reminded me, as I was reading through what I had stumbled across, reminded me of years ago when I was lining up to run my first half marathon, 13.1 miles. I was talking to a friend who was an experienced runner, and he was kind of counseling me on this and that. But one thing that really stuck with me, he said, Frank, the hardest part of this race is not the end. It's the middle. In the beginning, you're excited, he told me, and towards the end, you're energized by the prospects of running through crowds of cheering fans and finishing and collecting your medal. But 6-7 miles in, you have all that mileage on your body and just as much in front of you. That's when you're most likely to feel like quitting. He was right. The start was fun. The first 6 or 7 miles, I felt strong. Everybody feels strong. Then the middle hit. That was the realization that I had run a long way, but I still had a long way to go. That was almost demoralizing. I didn't quit, but I felt like doing it, and I saw many others quit. But I pressed on. I gutted out the hard, seemingly lonely next 3 or 4 miles. As I did, I reminded myself of my goal. I reminded myself of all the training. I reminded myself of the friends and family at the end. I endured through Kanter's law. Then with only a couple miles to go, things seemed to get easier. The thought of finishing created a euphoria. The people lining the course seemed to increase. Their cheers seemed to grow exponentially. In no time, I'd crossed the finish line, and a half marathon was crossed off my bucket list. So what does Kanter's law and half marathons have to do with networking? The answer, lots. Think about it. Improving your network or just getting started in networking involves change. You embark upon that change. In your mind, you have a compelling vision for yourself, better relationships, new contacts, a steady flow of great referrals. That thought fires you up and you're eager to start. And that's how it goes. You figuratively, or maybe actually, roll up your sleeves and get after it. All right, you're excited. But nothing happens overnight, especially about when you're changing old networking habits or putting in place habits that will build something lasting. As things wear on, things get downright hard, seemingly impossible. It gets to where you feel as if the compelling vision may never be realized. At that point, you feel that your previously energized attitudes are starting to morph into ones where you're questioning every stinking effort. At this moment, you need to remind yourself of Kanter's law. The hope and optimistic feelings you had in the beginning were real. And when you see it through, you'll experience feelings of confidence and elation. But in the middle, everything looks like a failure. Important change doesn't generally develop the way you'd like. It's not linear and smooth. Rather, change can and often does involve 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or at times worse. Or networking efforts seem to generate no positive gains at all. Add to this the fact that by the time you hit the middle, you've done lots of work, like the middle of a half marathon, leaving you exhausted. But you still see lots of work ahead of you. And at this moment, you start to question whether the networking gains will happen. Frustration sets in. You might even be faced with some unexpected events that seem to threaten to derail all your hard work. It's here when despondency appears. But it's at this point that you have to remind yourself that it's all perfectly natural. It's part of the process. It's just a dip on the road to building a great network. This is Kanter's law. It's not failure, it just feels like it. It's here when you need to double down your efforts and resolve to see things through. Remind yourself of why you got started and how you felt when you got started. And remind yourself that that feeling will be there when you see things through. Reflect on the vision you have for a great network. Reflect on the worthwhile outcomes, the wonderful relationships, the new contacts, the awesome referrals. You can't avoid Kanter's law. Everything seems like a failure in the middle. You can't break this law, but you can see it through. As a reminder, AmSpirit Business Connections is looking to grow its team, and it just might be a great opportunity for you, so please take note. We're looking to add franchisees to our system. What does this entail? AmSpirit Business Connections franchisees help entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals in their area connect, exchange quality referrals, and become more successful. They do this through a structured weekly morning meeting. Because these meetings are in the morning, generally wrapping up around 9 a.m., a successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity on to what they're already doing. All AmSpirit Business Connections franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, in the early morning, a few days a week, our franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're entrepreneurs and professionals such as attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. Here's the neat thing. Not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections program, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business focus as well. So if you or someone you know would like to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one provided at the end of the program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.